채널 젊은달. 오늘 여러분들에게 소개해드릴 감독님은 영화 카푸티, 머니볼, 폭스캐쳐를 연출하신 베넷 밀러 감독님입니다. 답을 위한 질문, 영화로운 시간의 시네마클럽은 현재 수강신청을 받고 있습니다. 직업으로서의 영화인, 대화, 대사, 그리고 음악 이렇게 2개의 커리큘럼으로 진행되고 있습니다. 더 자세한 정보는 아래 홈페이지 링크를 참고해주시기 바랍니다. 많은 관심 부탁드립니다. 감사합니다.
폭스캐쳐는 개봉 때 놓쳤기 때문에 나중에서야 영상자료원에서 할 때 한번 보고 깜짝 놀라서 플레인 아카이브에서 나온 블루레이를 한번 더 본. 제가 2번을 보는 영화는 정말 극소수인데 그 중에 한 편입니다.
베넷 밀러 감독님은 장편 데뷔작 카포티, 그리고 폭스캐쳐로 아카데미 감독상 후보에 오른 적이 있고요. 폭스캐쳐로 칸느에서 감독상을 수상하신 경력이 있는데요. 수상 경력과 상관없이 브래드 피트 주연의 머니볼도 엄청난 수작입니다.
You know, we had a few test screenings, and so Aaron Sorkin and Steve Zalian, came to that first screening, and it's the first time either one of them had seen a cut. Aaron sent me an email that night that said, "I mean this in the best way possible and in a positive way. You just made a $50 million independent film."
지금까지 감독님의 영화들은 모두 실화를 바탕으로 영화 속 실존 인물들의 내면을 건조하면서도 섬세하게 담아내는 것으로 유명합니다.
And now my cinematic crush is collectively the cast of Foxcatcher. The 3 of them are just... My mind is blown. I cried the entire way. That Mark Ruffalo and Channing Tatum just knifed me in the gut and ran. I don't even know how to reach out to him. What do I do? Thanks a lot, Channing Tatum. You slayed me.
감독님은 장편으로 넘어오기 전에 NYU 동기였던 필립 세이모어 허프만 배우와 볼스토이 앙상블 극단을 운영했었고요. 이후 76분짜리 흑백 다큐멘터리 영화 더 크루즈로 입봉을 하셨습니다.
Working on a documentary or working on a narrative feature fundamentally feels the same to me. Cruise, which was my first film, it employs a lot of narrative techniques. It's not so much documentary as it is a documentary portrait. And my narratives incorporate, documentary technique too. When you're actually looking through the eyepiece, through the lens of a camera, as you're shooting a documentary, and there's that coincidence that occurs of character unfolding and light and composition and whatever's happening with the sound, coincidence that happens that you could not fabricate, and it's electric. It's magic, and you just there's that feeling. It should feel that way. I think for me, it should feel that way too when you're working on a film. And as much preparation as you do, and as much as you might understand it or think you understand it, when you get there, if it's been preconceived too well, it doesn't work.
여기서 잠깐, 감독님이 얘기하는 내용은 사전 준비를 대충 하라는 의미가 아닙니다. 이는 저의 다른 영상에서도 다루었던 현장에서 자유롭기 위해 철저하게 준비한다는 드니 빌너브 감독님과 영화 제작에 완벽한 통제란 있을 수 없다라는 란티모스 감독님의 철학과 동일한 맥락으로 현장을 통해서만 발견할 수 있는 순간을 위해 사전에 준비한 계획에 매몰되면 안 된다라는 의미에서 감독님이 이렇게 얘기함을 알려드립니다.
And it's nice to keep the actors on their heels and do whatever it takes to kind of get to that feeling, so that when it happens, you are shooting something that is happening and it's alive and it's not going to happen again.
He was intent on bringing in real baseball insiders. Therefore, they're not actors. The baseball players, a lot of the scouts, they're not trained as we are. And he very wisely said, "Don't say the lines. Put them in your own words, put them in your own words, put them in your own words." Then it became incumbent on us to respond to that. It can be very exhausting. You got to be on your toes at all time. And these guys know baseball certainly more than we do. And it was the same thing in Tree of Life, working with kids that didn't know the script and weren't actors. The interesting for us is there's a spontaneity that happens. There's a freshness that happens that's up on the screen that I really, really enjoy. I'm questioning myself how to bring that into future projects, because I think it makes that little bit of difference in what we do. You are really on the moment. We have technique, we try to get to the moment, we have different ways to do that, but this particular, you're punching it out. You are punching out, and we were punching it out every day.
I think the strength of how he directs is he's very collaborative. He has very specific ideas as to what the movie will be and what it needs to be. But getting there is a real collaboration with him. He is completely open to exploration and trying different things. So he gave us a real freedom with that. But we didn't talk it to death. We didn't, I don't think we over analyzed it. I think the key for him was having it feel true.
Day to day, what we were doing was figuring out what it is that we were doing, because we really couldn't convene the actors for a lengthy rehearsal period. We were rehearsing that day, often as the cameras were rolling, exploring what these scenes are. How do you come to understand something without stating it, because there's always the scene, and then there's like the scene beneath the scene.
I mean, I knew what he was after, and the enormity of it. Sometimes I cursed him for it because he made me feel uncomfortable, or challenged me in ways that I didn't want to be challenged.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful for him, and know for a fact that guy is just as contorted as we are. I mean, he's struggling with it.
You can talk about the film that you're going to make. I'm going to make this film, and and this scene exists because of this. But that's just a conversation. That's not the scene itself. That's a description of a spirit. It's a spirit that's looking to be incarnated. How does that happen? Like, what's the process by which this thing that I could feel and maybe I can make you feel and see to a degree, but still is not material? What's the process that it becomes incarnated? And the process recruits these actors and their talents and obliges them to speak for these characters. The process of incarnating it did involve some exploration, and there was a certain amount that we knew, and there was a certain amount we had to admit that we did not know, and as much work had been done over the years on the script. Still, when you get there, that's part of the process. And part of the ultimate authoring of the film is, you don't stop examining, you don't stop the exploration. And so it was opened up to them.
Hey, John. Really sorry about your mother.
Oh, no. It's fine. It's fine. Yes.
You sure?
David, we have a lot of work to do the next couple of months. And you're an integral part of that. You understand?
I understand.
I'm going to need you. And I will be relying on you to a great extent. I want, more than anything, to win a gold medal. And we have someone who could do that.
Well, we're going to win a gold medal, John.
How are you feeling
I feel very good about it.
Every movie teaches you how to make that movie. Everything feels like writing to me. Everything. That's how filmmaking feels to me. Things are not as compartmentalized,
I started training 7 months before we shot a single frame. I was a wrestler in high school, but I had to relearn everything because I was right-handed and Dave was left-handed, so that was a struggle. But also, I had to put on 30 pounds. Even though it's a movie and to some degree the wrestling's choreographed, wrestling doesn't really work to choreograph it like a fight scene does. You can't cover a punch with a camera angle. You really have to be wrestling in order for it to sell. We were going 100%, and it was tough. I was 45 at the time. Dave Schultz was at the height of his athletic prowess at 33. That 12-year difference was brutal,
Well, the difference with this role is the fact that there's a lot of work to be done before you can really interact with other actors in a way that will be beneficial. I just needed to be in a room alone for a long time to kind of work on certain things. So when I did start rehearsing or acting with the people, I had the facility to actually, give and take with them. Whereas other parts don't need that sometimes. Sometimes you're not worried about a certain technical aspect of playing the part, so you can kind of delve in. But I just think as an actor, it's good to explore a lot of different challenges.
It was research leading up to it, and then when you do it, you hope all of that research is inside of you somewhere, and then you just kind of let it come out. You never want to see people working at it, and I think the best way to achieve that is to just you study in advance. So when you're doing it, it doesn't look like nuts and bolts, and you're not thinking about that when you're doing it. It makes you listen. I think a good improviser listens. It's not so much about saying funny things. When I learned improv, it was more about being in a scene, and that your partner is the most important person in that scene, and it's your job to make them look good. So that's why I always loved being in an ensemble, because it was about everybody. You're just a component. It was never about just you.
One of the last things that fell into place was how to manage the first act, which ended up being a little bit unwieldy. A number of scenes that we're all laboring to accomplish who these characters are, who they are to each other and stuff like that. What I learned with these actors, because they had prepared so well and had gone so deep, that there was quite a bit that we were getting in ways that I hadn't expected, and figuring out how to dump about 20 minutes of scenes in the first act. I mean, there's a scene in the film, and you watch these two brothers warm up and work out, and then something happens. But just the way that they warmed up with each other, you saw everything that these other scenes were laboring to do. I mean, wordlessly. Truman Capote had a quote. He was asked about the writing style of In Cold Blood as compared to some of his earlier work. It was noted that In Cold Blood is much simpler prose as compared to the more colorful, florid writing of his youth. That's the writing of a much younger artist, is truthfully much easier. If you are able to conjure the same dimensions with simple writing, it is ultimately more powerful. I think simplicity is very hard to achieve. You know, haiku is very hard to achieve. I think naturally requires these permutations and explorations, experimentations and stuff like that. I don't know who said it originally, but it's something I'd heard way back in the day and I always thought was true. Films are like people, and you either trust them or you don't. To exercise like restraint, you know, when you've got at your fingertips so many like gimmicks, you know, tricks and ways to spice things up, to exercise restraint in that and put something in front of the lens that doesn't need to be dressed up, you know, that you could just you could scrutinize and it's going to hold its ground. That's hard, and I think has better chance of escaping the dimension of falseness.
I don't think very many directors could have the time that he had to edit this without at some point being sort of diminishing in the return of it. I don't know that many people that could live inside of a movie this long and still be productive.
So, I mean, is there a time when you then panic after that when you're in post, or do you always keep that positive glow about it as you're going?
I guess I just believe, you know. That's the main thing, is if you just, like, where does tenacity or determination come from? I don't think of myself as someone who's just nakedly tenacious. If there is tenacity there, it's always because, you know, I could see it, or I feel, you know, it's like there's got to be a way to get this there, and sometimes it takes a long time, but I don't tend to despair too much, no.